Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the Q&A segment of today's event. Thank you to everyone for all your interaction and all your questions across the event and through both breakout sessions as well. So we're going to dive into some of the questions that potentially we weren't able to answer through some of the breakout sessions. So one of the first questions is from a gentleman called Rafai. He feels that many cybersecurity roles seem to require SC clearance, and that seems to be creating a barrier for some of our international students like him. What advice do we have for people in his condition? I know it's something that I've experienced a lot from the recruiting side of things, where we have a lot of students here in the UK that finish their studies and then have a year or a 2-year post-study visa, but they're struggling to find opportunities. Perhaps I could come to you, Angelique. Do you have any advice for this gentleman at all?
Hi, Rafai. Yes, actually, that's a very interesting question. So when I read that question, I mean, I obtained clearance when I did work for HMG. However, up until that point in my career, I held no security clearance and still did security work in the private sector. So if that's a barrier for me in life, you look where water rolls downhill. And if you're facing an uphill struggle with SC clearance in the public sector, my advice at that point would be to target industries where in the private sector where that's not necessarily something that you would require. And then the main thing is when you do the legwork and start making contacts, things start to become easier. So my advice would be if that's a barrier for entry for you at present, then try to target other industries. And I can speak for myself where, 15, almost 20 years of it, there was no clearance and I still did work there. But obviously your journey is unique. But that is my advice to you.
Thank you, Angelique. I think to your point then, to add to that, it also depends on the type of role that you're going into in the industry as well, doesn't it? Because, if for example, you might be a penetration tester or working in the SOC or in an MSSP environment where you're working with lots of different customers that may fall under that banner. You're right, it may just be worth considering something that is maybe more with an end user or an end client or a bigger corporation organization that, sort of can help you, sort of down that route and on that journey as well. So we have another question from a lady called Tabitha, which we answered in breakout session 1, but it'd be great to get some other opinions and advice on this as well. So Tabitha's about to graduate with a degree in cybersecurity, but still feels that she doesn't quite know where she'll fit into the industry. She'd love a graduate role and actually to get some experience and, sort of hands-on practical experience and the opportunity to sort of find out more about different roles. To add to that, she's also a single mum. She doesn't live near a sort of major city, but she can commute, but, naturally so she can't relocate. Do we have any advice for Tabitha as well? Perhaps I can come to you, Claudia.
I kind of know how Tabitha feels because I think when I just started to want to understand where would I go after I left university, but what I did is I always, as I say, keep an open mind. And so when I applied, of course, I applied for things that I thought would be interesting, anything that had to do with networking and systems and all of those things. And when I went to British Telecom, I didn't quite know exactly how it would all fit together. So you start working with systems. And then I think the way to do it is to just start at a place that you feel is exciting, something that may be interesting. You may not know what it is all about, but you really need to just embrace it. Because the thing is that when we think about cyber, we like to close and box it in. But I always, when I practice against the 5 pillars. I mean, when I think about it, I think there's data and information and there's everything. We're in a data-centric society and there's a whole lot of sides of things that you can do. And if you move to the systems and networks, which the information flows over, and then you go to cyber because now we're doing things outside of the organization. And then if you move from cyber, then you have personnel security, which is all about the people and awareness and training and how you deal with that. And then you have the physical side. And at British Telecom, I worked across every one of those pillars. And it put me in good standing today, because at the Department for Work and Pensions, I didn't only have to do cyber. I was in charge of the 775 buildings that the DWP has, that are not only job centers, but also the offices and things. So you learn a whole lot. And I think there's somewhere, and it's just like Angelique said, you know, just move on to something else that you feel you fit. You probably will enjoy it. And that's how to start. And I think probably will find that there is a place that she can fit in. It's so immense in terms of the knowledge and the holisticness end to end, in which you can find a niche that you can start with.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thank you. And I think to your point there is that, you know, just because you start in one place in the industry doesn't mean that you can't pivot to, you know, other areas, other disciplines, etc. You know, you might find a love for, you know, another area within the business that you're working with, etc. as well. So you're never going to feel pigeonholed in a specific area. You know, you can really branch out and, you know, learn lots of other different disciplines that you're potentially interested in.
Yes, like the physical security. And in fact, in a lot of my jobs, I was responsible for physical security as well in over 100 countries, and having to go there and look at physical security as well as cyber. So try and learn across the spectrum. It really does build you.
If I may add, Natasha, one other areas too is for Tabitha is to think about also the small to medium enterprise market, because sometimes that gives you a broad experience as well. So whereas in the corporate world, you'll have quite, you know, tranched, as Claudia said, siloed divisions within cyber, within the domains of cyber, whereas in the SME market, in that mid-tier corporate, you know, range, you'll get broad experience and you'll sort of learn what you like and what you don't like. And, you know, and also think outside the square in the sense of, you know, there's the humanitarian aid work with regards to security as well. And there's education in security, you know, so there's a whole range of elements. But if you sort of move out of that corporate range, you do get a bit of a broad experience. And then you can sort of start to feel like, well, I really like that, or I don't like that, or this is what I do like. So I think, you know, think outside the corporate world into that SME, and that, of course, is great for our industry as well, because that's 95% of the economy is the SME market. And so we often forget that. So I think that's a good one to go into as well.
Yeah, fantastic point, Lisa. Thank you.
Natasha, can I just jump in and just remind the audience, please? Please do post your questions. We're here to answer and provide any advice and support you need. So don't be shy. Pop anything that you'd like to raise or debate with us. Please do. Lisa, we were talking back in the Q&A session about thought leadership, and we had to be able to hop over here quite quickly, didn't we? And one thing you were saying about you know, identifying, I guess, your swim lane from the thought leadership perspective is about identifying your courage and what inspires you. Can you expand a little bit more on that, please?
Yeah, I think as a thought leader, and I've spoken about this often, it's our experiences. And, you know, I was fascinated when I was listening to Claudia and Steph and Angelique, you know, speaking about their journeys into the industry. And like many of us, I sort of fell into this industry. I moved from high risk management, and for me, the digital space was just another element of risk management. And of course, as our digitization has grown, it's moved into that space. But I do tend to talk about our personal experiences, what's changed us, what's manifestly drives us as why we you know, lead the industry and we encourage diversity and inclusion in the industry. But I think not only about that do I talk about using our experiences, it's holding those accountable to make change. I think there's two parts to the equation. And again, I do struggle sometimes, and I did say this in the last session, to actually say Happy International Women's Day. I'd like to get to the point where we don't have to say that. And I feel in my own journey, my own experiences, that International Women's Day is actually not a particularly happy day, because I'm still experiencing a profound discrimination in this industry. And so I think courage is something that we all need in droves, but I think it's courage about being honest about our experiences, because if we can't articulate as leaders if we can't articulate our experiences, those who can make change aren't mind readers either. So we need to be able to articulate that in a respectful way. And I talked about having courage to be honest will make those that need to make change uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is actually okay, provided it's respectful and secure and safe. And I think that's an important point on this day, because I know I'm hearing a constant feed of people saying, I don't want platitudes today. I want actions. I don't want more words today. The words break the bias are 3 words. The actions that change that require us to step up to the plate and have courage to do that.
Yeah, very, very true, Lisa. Claudia, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think what Lisa is saying is great, and I think what the audience is saying is, yes, okay, can we get the action going? And one of the biggest and most important actions that we need to take as women is to create our safe havens for women coming up. I mean, we talk about not having enough women, but when we get them, what do we do with them? Do we create the havens that they can stay in there, that learn, experience, understand how we protect them? And on my own journey, as I said to you, unfortunately I didn't have any women around me, but I had our male colleagues who stepped up and did that. But the most important thing is that we don't and should not today have to look to our male colleagues alone to be playing that role. We have that importance. We need to. It is our duty of care to create the safe havens for the next generation and for the current ones as well. Today, we've just come out of the pandemic. Well-being lies at the center of every decision that every human being makes today. And even more than ever, we need to be able to protect our women who we want to come into this industry. It is our duty. If we fail, it fails.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claudia. Really, really strong words. We have another question in the chat box, if you don't mind, ladies. We'll just see if we can squeeze one more in before we hop over to Nicola's session. What advice do you have for a woman with a background in law, double master's degree, one focused on information society, who have transitioned into IT as a business analyst, but who wants to transition into cybersecurity, specifically GRC? Can you help us out with that one?
I'm happy to help out.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. With Hallam, I think what would be great for you is to think about, I know certifications is not always the way, but there is a CIPPE certification, which looks at privacy and allows you to think about data governance from all different angles. So if you are thinking of transitioning, what I normally tell women in my network is that think about certifications that align towards your goal. Also, think about gaining experience. I think one of the great things is that we have social networks, whether that it be your church, your religious building, or like your communities, and think about your friends and how you can use your skills to help them out as a way of gaining experience as well. And also then think about putting yourself out there on LinkedIn. I think we've talked about the importance of other women helping. Feel free to reach out to other women in positions that you might be interested in, and creating that network and just putting yourself out there is what I would recommend.
Laura, if I can hop in on that, I'd also recommend to look to, if they're particularly interested in the governance side, and obviously with a background in law, some of the work that I like to lead in leadership is around that real infrastructure change. So legal reform and law reform around our sectors. So, for example, Law Tech UK is doing some incredible work with the Law Panel and the Law Commission. Follow those and get involved with those. There's lots of work being done in that regard to turn our world into being more digitally trusted and digitally safe. But that deep, rich background in both cyber and wanting to get into cyber and law is where you can actually start to get entrenched in some of the real infrastructure, legal reform and judiciary reform, and making deep change that will affect the whole industry. So apart from just working in corporate, look to some of the ways that you can actually use those experiences and skills to make that real underpinning foundational change. And we certainly need more women in that space as well, because our way of thinking about the world empathically and with compassion and those sorts of areas is critically important. Because if we actually create new statutes and laws that don't have women and gender parity involved, we'll actually perpetuate the systemic, male-dominated industries that we've had for many years. So it's really important we get involved in those areas as well.
And I think what I'd like to add to Stephanie and Lisa's points, which are so spot on as well, is that if we remember that data creates experience, that's what the whole excitement about data is. It's about creating experiences for people. And so the fact of the matter is that data is such a personal thing and has a lot of legal liabilities. We are dealing with a society today that's much more privacy and security savvy, because the media is highlighting a lot of what can happen. So they expect of their products and services to know and ensure that there is amount of legal compliance built into it. I think it's a fascinating time for a legal person. Can I have you, please? I have lots of work for you.
Me too.
Thank you so much, ladies. Just Molly, one of my Research colleagues, she just posted a note there in response to that as well, saying she has a background in English and a master's in philosophy, yet she's built a successful cyber career, so it's possible. She advises lots of self-study and using resources you can find online. She does have she's published a self-study resource list, which is on her LinkedIn profile as well, that can be found quite easily. She says, bear in mind that you have gained so many transferable skills from your law degree as well. Critical thinking, communication skills are essential. So there's just
that's a thumbs up to Molly. That's great.
Yeah. Just conscious of time here before we switch over to Nicola. So following on from the theme there that you're talking about, Lisa, about evidencing change, actually tangible action. Nicola is going to give us a talk on the Decrypting Diversity Report and the updates to that were issued at the back end of 2021. So I think we will need to leave it there. Just want to re-emphasise for our audience that we are making a note of all the questions that have come in, and anything we haven't been able to answer, we will publish some commentary around that, as well as sharing again what we've been talking about and the points and comments and advice that we have been able to answer. So if you wouldn't mind, everybody, thank you so much, ladies, for your help here and your support. It's amazing. And let's switch over to the main stage. Thank you. Hi, Nikki.
Thank you. Hiya. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. So I'll hand over to yourself. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Laura. And thank you to the amazing panel. I've just been listening in and taking notes. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy International Women's Day. I'm really, really delighted that the Cybersecurity Council reached out and invited me to join you for this event today. But I just wanted to pause for 1 minute and reflect on the fact that we are here today to celebrate International Women's Day. And in preparation, I was thinking, when did this begin? It's always been around, hasn't it? What precipitated it? What was the starting point? And in my research, I found a few things I thought I would share with you. The first acknowledged International Women's Day was in the US on February the 28th, 1909. And what I found fascinating, given the events we're seeing unfold on the TV screens on a daily basis, is it was spurred on by a Ukrainian-born suffragist named Clora Lemlich, who demanded better pay, shorter working hours, and improved working conditions for 15,000 garment workers who went on strike in New York. And now we celebrate the day in more than 100 countries, and it is an official holiday in Ukraine. And I don't know about others on this call, but I think we've all had moments over the last couple of weeks where images we have seen of women continuing to work or to care for children and families during the conflict has made us pause and reflect on their courage. And just as we heard Professor Lisa Short talk about the need for courage to take action, I hope that by sharing some of these facts and figures that came out of our second report with KPMG on decrypting diversity in the cybersecurity sector, we'll come away and we will think about what do we need to do collectively, individually, to support each other and women as they pursue careers in the cybersecurity sector. Why do we still need even to celebrate International Women's Day? In fact, I think it was Lisa who said, I'd rather we didn't. I'd rather there was no need for it. I'd rather everything was perfect. In 2020, the UN reported that almost 90% of people are prejudiced towards women globally. In 2013, research stated that women represented just 11% of the worldwide cybersecurity workforce. It is now at about 24%. 26 of the STEM graduates in this country are women. Girls represent about 44% of A-level STEM entries, but only 14% of computing A-levels entries. And at these sorts of stats that we were hearing and seeing and just seeing women talk about, that made us think about undertaking this specific survey amongst the cybersecurity industry to try and get some hard data on what was actually going on the ground. And the stats are still quite startling. We remain a disproportionately male profession. There has been an encouraging increase from when we first went out in 2020, with respondents who identify as being female moving from 31 to 36%. But of the senior leaders who responded, 66% identify as male. Our female respondents tended to be younger, suggesting that they're at the early stages of their career. And as a profession, we really need to ensure that women are supported in reaching leadership positions and being visible and active there, that we have productive conversations about how starting a family, caring responsibilities for children, elderly relatives and post-COVID dogs, as well as issues we hear less about, like the menopause, can still be compatible with being brilliant leaders. There is a long way to go. An important aspect of the report has been starting to look at the results through the lens of intersectionality and how, for example, a person's gender might be affecting their experience in combination with other aspects of their identity. It's interesting to see, for example, that those who've reported a disability, 31% are women who've experienced discrimination versus 22% of men with a disability. A person's sex seems to have an impact on their experience of negative incidents around ethnicity too, with more women than men reporting negative comments or conduct based on their ethnicity. This trend also seems to play out across negative comments around age, more women than men reporting negative comments about their age. So whilst it's important that we look at findings in some isolation, it's when you begin to look at these combinations that you really understand what is going on. We also, for the very first time this time round, asked about neurodivergence, and 19% of respondents identified as neurodivergent, which is significantly higher than the 10% estimated for the UK population. The findings show that younger respondents are identifying as neurodivergent, with 27% of 18 to 24-year-olds considering themselves neurodivergent. And as we discuss further on in our report, it is worth noting that whilst under the Equality Act, 2010, many people that identify as neurodivergent would be protected. Many would not see themselves as such. And that's why we asked a completely separate question on it. What else has the survey told us about women in cybersecurity? As I've just said, over a third of our respondents were female, a slight increase, which is promising. We found a higher weighting of female staff amongst the younger age group. So we're attracting women into the cybersecurity sector, which is great. And amongst senior leadership roles, just about a third are filled by women, revealing a massive mismatch at the top, which needs addressing. What about discrimination against women in the workplace? We found that the number of incidents that people are reporting is actually going up. In one way, that could be good, in that people feel that there is a way to report these incidents, that they are being heard, that something is going to be done. It also points to a huge amount of discrimination going on in this sector. It is really striking that if you are in a minority group, whether based on ethnicity or gender or disability, your experience in the workplace is a very different experience from that of the majority. This is not okay. It is an issue that minorities in the workplace have to factor into their everyday working life, allowing for all the stress and the issues that brings about. It's also an additional emotional load. And I think that's what we hear about when we talk about the courage and the resilience that we have to have. There's two sides to that emotional load: the discrimination itself, the act itself, the shock that somebody is treating you differently. And then you're asked to, how can we improve this situation? You have to become the answer to the issue that you're raising. That in itself brings about stress for individuals. Unfortunately, 1 in 5 of the people working in the cyber industry say they have experienced some form of discrimination in the last year. This was, as I said, an increase on the previous survey, which was 16%. What really stands out is where those figures come from. The largest number of people reporting discrimination is women. 19% experienced discrimination or a gender-based incident. Just 1% of men reported a gender-based incident. That's 1 in 5 of the women in the workforce feeling that they had something that happened which was based on their gender. It is a similar story for ethnicity, social background, even age and disability. So what we are still seeing is that many of us are experiencing some form of discrimination. There is also a number of respondents experience career barriers as a result of diversity and inclusion issues. This has risen significantly as well, from 14% in our last survey to 25% now. It is truly sobering to think that a quarter of the industry has felt they have encountered blockages to their career progression on the basis of their personal characteristics. It is actually worth noting, though, that the figures for this are lower amongst not-for-profit organisations, 18%, and academic organisations, 21%, than the industry as a whole. We find that some groups are much more likely to experience specific career barriers. Again, it begins with gender. 36% of non-senior and 40% of senior women said they've experienced barriers, compared to 16 and 19% of men. Across respondents as a whole, women are twice as likely to have experienced a barrier as men, 37% versus 18%. the number of individuals who are considering or have considered changing employer or leaving the sector because of perceived career barriers have also grown from 9% to 16%. Once again, clear disparities amongst that group. In terms of gender, a significantly higher proportion of women than men are considering moving their employer, 17% versus 9%. And also more are thinking about leaving the sector, 7% of women versus 2%. All in all, these findings leave us all with plenty to think about. And on this day, International Women's Day, I think it is worth all of us reflecting on the experiences of women highlighted in this survey and asking ourselves, each and every one of us, what more can I do to support my female colleagues in the workplace? In terms of mentoring, in terms of helping build confidence, career advice, buddying, being a supportive colleague, calling out bad behaviours. We all have got to do more to make it an inclusive workplace for our colleagues and to be as welcoming to new incomers into the cybersecurity sector. Thank you. I hope you all have a wonderful day and continue to enjoy the conference.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hi. Yes, you cut out for me there, Laura. That's
Sorry
quite
about
all
that.
No, don't worry.
Thank you so much, Nicola. That was fascinating, but also shocking and alarming when you actually consider those numbers. On the research that took place, the numbers you mentioned there that had increased from 9 to 16% on, was it people as a whole or women specifically that were considering leaving the industry because of career barriers?
Career barriers. So 9 to 16%. So 9 to 16% is people in who were interviewed collectively out of the whole survey. So the last survey, 9% of every respondent said they were thinking about leaving. This year it's 16%. However, women, it's actually 17% versus 9% of men. So yeah.
Wow. Do you have any feedback around what those barriers look like?
No, we didn't do any in-depth focus groups at all, and it's certainly something that I think is worth doing. Anecdotally, from work and talking to people, there are a number of barriers. There are barriers that we put in ourselves across any sector. I've got young children, I'm working part-time, I can't go for that promotion, I'm not good enough, or I need X. I need to be able to do 100% of the job, rather than our male colleagues who think, oh, of course I could do that job, I can do about 50%, of course I can do it. So the normal kind of barriers that you hear women talking about as to why they are not going for promotion or don't feel they can are there. There is also a confidence thing, and if you're in teams that are all male and nobody's supporting you and mentoring you, you don't feel that somebody is, as I've heard somebody saying, giving you the tap on the shoulder. So you feel excluded just because nobody's talking to you about it, and it may be that people are coming to their own conclusion and kind of go, oh, she won't want it, she's got children or whatever. And we've got to challenge all these preconceptions, ask a woman, and if that is what she says, say, really, I think you could. What would make it okay for you to get a promotion? Is it a job share? Is it reduced hours? Is it more training? We believe in you. So these conversations are not being had. Women don't feel supported to be going for it. And then there is, you know, how some of these processes work, what people are being judged on. Everybody has very, very different skills. And if a workplace is only looking at one particular bit, which is a highly technical X, and you're doing jobs that nobody else is doing that are equally important, and you have technical background, but you're picking up maybe some of the managerial stuff as well and stuff, you know, you're then not being thought to be able to go into that highly technical specialized role, because you're doing bits of a job that everybody should be doing, quite honestly. So there's lots of barriers, but I do think we should do a bit of deep down kind of focus group research to get under them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, we all know the barriers, or, you know, the barriers that have been pinned as those preventing women entering the industry. I just wonder how many of those actually still play out for those in the industry. So, you know, do you think, or have you come across feedback where women actually still are struggling to understand their options, their career pathways that are already in industry? Do you think that the perception that they can, you know, they can further their careers, they can advance their careers, is, you know, is there an issue there? Is there, you know, how different is the pay still? Are you getting a lot of feedback around these pieces?
Yeah, I think they all still matter. There's a piece of work that was done whereby it was an organization, and they did some work on this, and it was like, why are all the seniors men and not women? And they did some focus group work, and one of the things that came out, and they interviewed both men and women, and the men leaders, when they were asked, how did you succeed? What happened to you that allowed you to get to the top? They all talked about having mentors or people within the organization above them who were helping them navigate careers and where to go, and giving them their expertise about, well, you should go into this bit of the business because you'll need that as you go further up. If you haven't had that, you know, being a bit of a kind of rainmaker for them. Secondly, which I think is the most important one that I found, was they all said they had made mistakes, big mistakes, career-ending mistakes, if you're a woman, like big mistakes, and were allowed to fail and being given the benefit of the doubt. Oh, they failed because of X, Y, Z, but they are brilliant, do X. And they were allowed to continue their career. And women, it found, if they had one bad job or something went wrong, that was it. That was deemed it. That was the end, almost. They almost had to leave the organisation to do a different job, to prove themselves again in a way that men didn't have to. So there's quite an interesting thing there for me, that as a woman, if you fail, that's it. You're kind of written off. Whereas men are allowed to fail, and in fact are supported through that failure.
And is that because, do you think, that's an interesting debate, isn't it? Because actually we care more and we're more conscious of our ability, our integrity, maybe. That's, you know, that men don't have it. But actually, when you look at the statistics and research around men applying for new jobs, as an example, so they think that they meet one of the criteria. I think that they can do the job that women have to meet at least 99% of the criteria before they apply for the job. So from a mindset approach, potentially then women are, you know, writing themselves off as opposed to brushing themselves down and then you know, moving forward and getting on with the job.
Yeah, I definitely think that has something to do with it. But definitely within the respondents, both men and women are less forgiving of women making a mistake.
Shocking still. Fascinating statistics. So the Decrypting Diversity report will be updated every year from now, will it?
Yes, we intend to do it roughly every year, 18 months, to continue to track, see what's happening, see if things are improving, getting better, getting worse. But definitely, I think there is room for some focus group deep dives as well.
Yeah, definitely. Just sorry, last one, Nikki.
Don't worry.
The demographic, you may have said this, and I may have completely overlooked it. The demographic survey respondents, there was about nearly 1,000, was there? And where were they? How were they picked?
Yes, so it was approximately 1,000, and both NCSC and KPMG and other partners. We had it on our website. We emailed directly to everybody in the cybersecurity sector. We hold, as many people will know, Cyber UK event for nearly 3,000 people. Everybody who's part of the sector and the industry was sent a link and asked to fill it in. So that's how we went about it.
Fantastic. Well, amazing. Lots of detail there to think about and create further debates. Like you say, lots of deep dives I think we can pull out of this, and be really interesting perhaps to host another session where we can engage with the audience a bit more and pick some of these things apart. Amazing.
Super. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you to everybody for organising the day, and I hope you continue to have amazing panelists like the one I kind of dialed into just before.
Thank you, Nikki. Well, I think we're nearly over now today. We do have some polls going on your pages somewhere, if you wouldn't mind helping us out and engaging. I can't see them on mine, but Tech, can you just confirm if we have any live at the moment? Bear with me.
There are some polls on the right of the screen for people that have not taken part in them yet. So we'll please take part in those polls if you have a moment.
Fantastic. Is Simon joining us for a thank you and sign off?
Yes, I'm here. Obviously, just waiting in the background.
Wow, what a couple of hours.
Woo. It was excellent. So, I mean, just from my view, I think just to say a massive thank you to all of the delegates, to all of the speakers. We did organise this at quite short notice, and I think, you know, the speakers, the panelists, everyone got involved and got on board and was keen to participate. So a massive, I think, you know, I've obviously been around all day in the background, etc. But I think the conversations, the insights, the honesty, the passion, the commitment for us as a council is absolutely essential that we put this event on. And obviously really glad to be working in partnership with WeSys UK, and again all the speakers, you know, jumping on board and really giving some really great insights. So thoroughly enjoyed, and my wife and my children all tuned in, loads of friends as well. So so this will be an annual event. I really look forward to one year when we can actually have this as a, you know, face-to-face physical event. That would be absolutely phenomenal. And I think there's a lot of lessons to basically learn from today, and also especially we're looking at kind of producing a paper based on a lot of the conversations, and exactly as you were saying around some of the points that Nikki was basically sharing around, so drilling down on some of the particular areas, because we, you know, exactly as Professor Lisa Short basically said, we need to move from conversation and consultation and to actually some real action. So we're really keen on working with the wider sector to drive the action forward. So just to say a massive thank you to everyone who's participated and been involved.